At my engagement party to Ava Carter, my elbow accidentally knocked over a slice of cake. The frosting smeared all over the white suit of her best guy friend, Caleb Vance. Before I could say a word, Ava rushed over, grabbing my arm, her nails digging into my flesh. "Ethan, get on your knees and apologize to Caleb. Now, bow your head to the floor 3 times, and then we'll consider this over." The entire ballroom fell silent. Caleb, the snake, pretended to smooth things over. "Ava, come on, it's okay." I looked at her, at the face of the woman defending another man, and I laughed. I raised my hand. Crack, crack, crack. 3 slaps sent her stumbling to the floor. I ripped the boutonniere from my lapel and threw at her face. "The engagement is off. You two deserve each other." As I turned and walked away, I could still hear her pathetic, hysterical screams. 1. The engagement party for me and Ava Carter was the event of the season, a who's who of Chicago's elite. Crystal chandeliers glittered, making you dizzy. The champagne tower was taller than I was. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume and fake laughter. I stood in the center of the grand ballroom at the peninsula, accepting congratulations from all sides. "Ethan, my boy, congratulations. A true power couple, a match made in heaven. With the Hayes and Carter families joining forces, Chicago will be your oyster." I held my champagne flute, a practiced smile fixed on my face. Inside, I felt nothing. It was a merger, plain and simple. Each family got something they needed. I understood the calculus. Ava clung to my arm, her own smile impossibly sweet. She was wearing a custom Vera Wang gown, the tiny diamonds on the skirt catching the light, almost blinding. "Honey," she whispered in my ear, her voice cloying, "when we cut the cake, you have to help me get a few good pictures for Instagram." I nodded. My mind was on the acquisition deal I was closing tomorrow. The MC was on stage, droning through the usual platitudes. The music swelled. It was time to cut the cake. A 7-tier monstrosity was wheeled out, topped with 2 little figures made of fondant. Ava and I stood side by side, our hands on the silver knife. The flashbulbs from the photographers were a blinding storm. After the cut, I turned to get a napkin to wipe my hands. My elbow bumped a small plate on the table beside me. The silver plate clattered to the floor with a piercing sound. The decorative slice of cake on it went airborne. It traced a perfect arc through the air. And then, splat, it landed squarely on the chest of Caleb Vance's white Armani Prive suit. Buttercream frosting oozed from his chest down toward his belt. White suit, yellow frosting. The contrast was comical. The ballroom went dead silent. Every single eye in the room swiveled toward us. Caleb just stood there, looking down at the mess on his suit. He didn't say a word, but Ava exploded. She whipped around, her hand clamping onto my arm like a vice. Her nails dug into my skin. "Ethan," her voice was sharp enough to shatter glass. "Are you blind?" I frowned, trying to pull my arm away. She squeezed tighter. "Look, just look at what you did to Caleb's suit." She pointed at the smear of frosting, her body trembling with rage. "This is custom Armani. Caleb bought this specifically for our engagement party today." Only then did Caleb look up. He pulled at the corner of his mouth, forcing something that was almost a smile. "Ava, it's fine." His voice was gentle, laced with just the right amount of put-upon grace. "Mr. Hayes didn't do it on purpose. It's a happy occasion. Let's not make a scene." He even glanced at me and smiled. His eyes were clear, his posture perfect. It would have been convincing if I hadn't seen the flash of triumph in his eyes. But his performance only made Ava more furious. "What do you mean, it's fine?" She yanked on my arm, trying to drag me in front of Caleb. "Ethan, you're going to apologize to Caleb this instant." I didn't move. I said, "Apologize." Ava shrieked. "Ow!" I asked. "On your knees." She spat the words out. Her voice wasn't loud, but in the dead silence, everyone heard it. "What did you say?" I said, "Get on your knees." Ava lifted her chin, her eyes filled with an insane sense of entitlement. "Get on your knees, bow your head to the floor 3 times. Only then is this over." A wave of gasps and whispers washed over the room. "On his knees? Is she insane? Over a suit? This is their engagement party." Ava ignored them all. She stared at me, her eyes burning. "Look at the mess you made. He's the most important person in my life. You will kneel for him today, or this engagement is off. The most important person. I savored the phrase. I looked at the woman who was supposed to be my fiancée tomorrow. I watched as she tried to force me to my knees for another man, in front of the entire world. I smiled. It was fucking hilarious. Caleb was still playing the part of the good guy. Ava, don't be like this. Ethan is a man of standing. You're embarrassing him. Embarrassing him? Ava cut him off. Did he think about embarrassing you when he ruined your suit? She turned back to me, her glare intensifying. Ethan, I'm going to count to 3. If you don't kneel, I'm walking out of here right now. What? She began to count. The silence in the room was suffocating. Everyone held their breath, waiting to see how this train wreck would end. 2. Ava's expression was resolute, as if I had committed some unforgivable crime. Caleb stood behind her, the smirk on his face barely contained. He was enjoying this. 3. Crack. I raised my hand. One slap across her left cheek. Hard. Her head snapped to the side, her hair falling across her face. Total, absolute silence. Ava clutched her cheek, slowly turning her head back. Her eyes were wide with disbelief. You hit me. Crack. The second slap. On her right cheek. For symmetry. Crack. The third slap. Back on the left. 3 times. Crisp, loud, echoing. Ava stumbled backward, her heel twisted, and she collapsed onto the floor. Her perfect updo came undone, and bright red fingerprints began to bloom on her skin. The corner of her lip split, a trickle of blood seeping out. She sat there, looking up at me. Her expression shifted from shock to fury, and finally, to pure venom. Ethan, the engagement is off? I interrupted her. My voice was calm, as if I were commenting on the weather. I reached up, pulled the white rose boutonniere from my tuxedo lapel, and tossed it. It hit her in the face, then fell beside her on the floor. Petals scattered. You two are perfect for each other. I turned my back on her. I didn't look at her, or at the stunned faces of our guests. I walked straight for the ballroom doors. Behind me, Ava's hysterical screaming began. Ethan, you'll regret this. I'm telling you, you will regret this. Regret. I pushed open the heavy doors of the ballroom and walked out into the quiet. 2. The hallway was silent, the plush carpet swallowing every sound. I walked to the elevator bank and pressed the down button. The doors chimed open. I stepped inside. The mirrored walls reflected my face. Calm, cold. A faint smile still lingered on my lips. The elevator descended. The floor numbers lit up one by one. Lobby. The doors opened. I walked out, crossing the vast marble floor of the hotel. The night air hit me, cool with the first hint of autumn. The driver had already pulled the car around. I opened the door and got in. Home. The car pulled away from the curb. In the rearview mirror, the brightly lit hotel grew smaller and smaller. I leaned back against the leather seat and closed my eyes. The image that flashed in my mind wasn't Ava's twisted face. It wasn't Caleb's smug smile. It was my father's words from last night, in his study. The Carter family expanded too quickly these past few years. Their credit is overextended. They desperately need our capital injection. They're the ones who came to us for this merger, for this marriage. Ethan, you know what to do. I knew. That's why I agreed to the engagement. That's why I tolerated Ava's petty tantrum stuff. That's why I was standing there tonight. But I never calculated this. I never calculated she could be this stupid. That she would try to force me to my knees for another man in public. Phoenix. This simplifies things. The next morning, O'Hare International Airport. I was dressed in a simple black trench coat, carrying a single roller bag. My assistant, Mark Jennings, followed a step behind, giving me a quiet update. Your father has already spoken with Mr. Carter. What did the Carters have to say? Mr. Carter is furious. He said we owe them an explanation. An explanation? I scoffed. Tell him the explanation is that the engagement is terminated and all joint ventures are canceled. The capital advance, we fronted them? I want it repaid in full within 3 days. Understood. What about the media? The press release went out an hour ago. Mark said, the headline is Hayes and Carter families postpone union, business ventures unaffected. Not good enough. I stopped walking. Change it. Engagement party disaster. Ava Carter's outburst leads to canceled merger. Mark hesitated. Sir, if we frame it like that, the Carters might. I want them embarrassed, I said, looking him in the eye. Do as I say. Yes, sir. The jet bridge was connected. I glanced up at the sky. It was gray, threatening rain. Mr. Hayes, Mark started, then paused. Are you sure about just leaving? What's the alternative? The board. A few of the older members might. They'll understand, I said, stepping onto the bridge. Compared to being tied to a fool who publicly demands her fiancé kneel to another man, my choice tonight is far more profitable for them. I stepped into the cabin. The door sealed behind me. The plane began a taxi, picking up speed, then lifting off. The Chicago skyline receded. Finally, it disappeared beneath the clouds. I settled back into my seat and pulled out my phone. The screen was lit up with a news alert. The photo was from last night. Ava, on the floor, clutching her face, her eyes full of hate. The headline was bold. High society nightmare. Ethan Hayes calls off engagement mid-party. I stared at it for a few seconds. Then I locked the screen and closed my eyes. The plane entered the clouds. A moment of turbulence. Just like that ridiculous engagement party. A brief tremor, then calm. 3 years. Not too long, not too short. Just long enough to drag someone from the penthouse to the gutter. And just long enough for someone else to build an even taller skyscraper. When the jet touched down in Chicago, the sky was overcast. I stepped out of the cabin, and Mark was already waiting at the end of the jet bridge. Mr. Hayes, he took the briefcase from my hand. In 3 years, he'd become much more polished. The car is ready. I nodded and walked toward the private exit. Outside the tinted window, Chicago sped by. The streets were both familiar and strange. New high-rises, new retail spaces, new digital billboards. It was a city that hadn't changed at all, and a city that had changed completely. Everything at the office is prepared, Mark said, handing me a tablet. We released the news of your return this morning. The stock opened up 7%. And Carter Holdings? I kept my gaze fixed on the window. Mark was silent for a beat. On life support, he pulled up a different report. Their debt-to-asset ratio is over 200%. The banks have frozen their credit lines. 3 of their primary suppliers filed a joint lawsuit last week to seize their assets. They haven't made payroll in 2 months, and half of their senior management has quit. And Ava? Mark hesitated. She put her father in the hospital last month. A massive stroke. He's still in the ICU. I didn't say anything. I just watched as the city's core grew closer. The building that once had the Golden Carter Holdings sign on it was now dark, the letters tarnished, like a dying man's last breath. The car turned into the financial district. Rounding a corner, Hayes Tower came into view. New, impossibly tall, its glass facade reflecting the gloomy sky. It was a project I greenlit before I left. In 3 years, it had become the new landmark on the Chicago skyline, and the first signal that I was back. 4. The car had just pulled up to the main entrance. I was about to get out. Suddenly, a figure darted out from the side and threw herself in front of the car. Thud! She dropped straight to her knees. The sound of her kneecaps hitting the cold marble was dull and heavy. I sat in the car, staring through the windshield at the person outside. Ava. I almost didn't recognize her. She was skeletal, her cheeks hollowed out, dark circles under her eyes. She was wearing an old, out-of-style dress. The fabric was wrinkled, the cuffs frayed. Her hair was a mess, greasy strands stuck to her sweaty forehead. She wore no makeup. Her skin was sallow, her lips chapped and peeling. A universe away from the heiress in the custom gown who had so arrogantly demanded I kneel before her. She knelt in front of my car. Her hands were planted on the ground, her forehead pressed against them. The posture was pathetically perfect. Ethan. Her voice came out, a hoarse rasp, like sandpaper on wood, choked with sobs. I was wrong. I was so wrong. She lifted her head. Tears and snot streamed down her face, a disgusting mess. I was out of my mind back then. I didn't know what I had. I never should have treated you like that. I never should have tried to make you. She cried and bowed her head, banging her forehead against the marble. Thump, thump. Please, please forgive me. The company is finished. My dad is in the hospital. Everything is gone. You're the only one who can save us. Ethan, please. She crawled forward, reaching for the car door handle. I'll do anything you want. Anything. As long as you help my family. Please. I sat in the car, motionless, watching her through the tinted glass. Her wretched face, her tears, her desperation, Her absolute despair. I remembered 3 years ago, at the engagement party, her nails digging into my arm, her shrill command, "Ethan, get on your knees and apologize to Caleb. Now, bow your head to the floor 3 times. Only then is this over." I remembered the look on her face. Arrogant, entitled, absolute. I remembered Caleb, standing behind her, the smile he couldn't suppress. I remembered the entire room of guests, stunned, shocked, waiting for the show. I remembered the 3 slaps, loud and clear. I remembered throwing the boutonniere in her face and saying, "The engagement is off. You two are perfect for each other." 3 years. 3 entire years. And now, she was kneeling in front of my car, begging me. I pushed the door open and got out. "He stood over here." Looking down, Ava raised her tear-streaked face, her eyes full of pleading. "Ethan, you'll forgive me, right? You'll help us, right?" I looked at her for 3 long seconds. Then I lifted my foot and kicked her in the shoulder. It wasn't a hard kick, but it wasn't gentle either. She let out a sharp cry and fell backward. The back of her head hit the pavement with a sickening thud. She lay on the ground, stunned. Her eyes were wide, staring up at me, as if she couldn't comprehend what had just happened. "You walked over," stood beside her, looked down. "Ava," my voice was quiet, devoid of any emotion. "Your apology is worthless." Her mouth opened. She wanted to say something, but no sound came out, only tears streaming silently down her face. I walked around her and headed straight for the main entrance of the tower. The glass doors slid open automatically. The security guards bowed in unison. "Mr. Hayes." I didn't look back. I strode into the lobby. Mark fell in a step beside me. "Should I have someone take care of that?" he asked quietly. "No." I stepped into my private elevator and pressed the button for the top floor. The elevator ascended. The numbers climbed. Floor 57. The doors opened. My penthouse office was ready. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of all of Chicago. I walked to the window and looked down. The tiny figure was still crumpled on the pavement, like a piece of trash someone had thrown away. A few passers-by had gathered, pointing. A security guard went over and dragged her to the curb. She didn't resist. Just let him move her. Her eyes were empty, staring at the sky. I turned away. I walked to my desk and sat down. Mark placed a file in front of me. "Sir, this is the latest financial report on Carter Holdings. It's even worse than we projected." I opened it, glanced through the pages. Debt, lawsuits, liens, liquidation. Every word was a nail in their coffin. I walked to the bar and poured myself a glass of whiskey. The amber liquid swirled in the glass, like the city lights, glittering and easily broken. "Mr. Hayes." Mark hesitated. "This Carter Holdings mess. Are we going to acquire the assets?" I took a sip of the whiskey. The burn went from my throat straight to my stomach. "Not yet," I said. "Let her kneel for a few more days. Let her kneel until she understands." She wanted me to kneel. Now, she can kneel until she's dead. Outside, the storm clouds gathered. It was about to rain. 5. Wednesday night, at a private club on the river. I sat at a window table, watching the lights of the tour boats glide by on the dark water. Leo Morgan came over, glass in hand, and sat down. "So you're really back? Looks that way. Figured you'd become an expat for good," Leo said with a grin. "Good to have you back, though. Chicago's gotten interesting." "How so?" "The Carters, man." He leaned in, lowering his voice. "You hear what happened?" "Which part?" "Ava's old man." Leo made its skiing sound. "The stroke. He's gone." My hand, holding the whiskey glass, paused. "Dead." "Last week," Leo said. "They didn't even have a funeral, just a quiet cremation. The Carters can't afford a funeral these days." I said nothing. Leo took a sip of his drink and continued. "You have no idea. The last 3 years with that family have been better than a soap opera." "Go on." "After you left the country, her old man locked her in the house, beat her for 3 days straight." Leo made a gesture with a belt. "I heard her back was a mess. And then kept her on house arrest for a month," Leo said, shaking his head. "But guess what she does? The minute her dad leaves on a business trip, she pries open his safe. Corporate seal, blank contracts, signatory stamp. She took everything. And where did she take it? To Caleb, of course." Leo laughed. "Caleb had started some tech company. Pitched it like a next big thing. but it was a total sham. Ava stole the corporate seal, forged her dad's signature, and used Carter Holdings as a guarantor to get a $30 million loan from the bank for Caleb's company. $30 million. I swirled the ice in my glass. And then Caleb started spending it like a drunken sailor, Leo said. Bought a Lamborghini, leased a ridiculously expensive office in the West Loop, hired a bunch of models as staff, and spent every day on team-building exercises, which basically meant taking everyone out for $1,000 dinners. What about the product? There was no product, Leo scoffed. He's an idiot who knows nothing. He threw money at a couple so-called high-tech ventures, all of which were scams. The minute the wire transfer went through, the other guys vanished. $30 million, gone in less than 6 months. So Ava stole the seal again and got another $20 million. That went even faster. 3 months, poof. Her dad only found out when the bank came calling. Leo paused, his voice dropping even lower. I heard the debt collectors walked right into the Carter Holdings headquarters and slammed the overdue notices on his desk. With interest, it was over $50 million. He called Ava into the office right then and there. She was still defending Caleb, saying he was about to turn it all around, that his projects had huge potential. Her dad told her to get Caleb on the phone, put him on speaker. Caleb shows up, shaking like a leaf. Denies everything at first. Finally admits he spent all the money and the projects were fake. Her dad's face just changed. Leo pointed to his temple. Massive stroke. Collapse on the spot. Never woke up. He was gone 3 days later. I finished the whiskey in my glass. And Carter Holdings? Gone, Leo said, throwing his hands up. Banks sued. Assets were frozen, forced into liquidation. You know where Ava lives now? A crumbling apartment in Englewood. The kind of place that rents for $800 a month. Caleb, in hiding, Leo said with a sneer. He took Ava's last few pieces of jewelry and whatever was left in her savings, maybe 50 grand, said he was skipping the country. Got scammed out of the money by some guys near the border and never even made it out. Now he's hiding out in some slum in Gary, Indiana, but he and Ava are still in touch. She's still with that loser? Who else does she have? Leo said. All her old society friends avoid her like the plague. She tried calling a few of them. They wouldn't even open the door. The waiter came by to refill our glasses. Leo picked up his fresh drink and looked at me. You're not back to help her, are you? I didn't answer. I just stared out the window. On the river, the lights of the boats stretched into long, shimmering lines, like the glittering, fake promises of the city itself. 6. Saturday night. The same private club, the penthouse suite. I had just finished a meeting with 2 overseas clients and saw them to the elevator. When I returned, someone was standing outside the suite's door. Ava. She'd changed her clothes. Still cheap, but at least they were clean. She had makeup on, but it couldn't hide the exhaustion. Her eyes were red and swollen, as if she'd been crying for days. The moment she saw me, she lunged. Ethan. I stepped aside. She stumbled, catching herself before she fell. Ethan, how did you get in here? This was a members-only club. Her membership had been revoked long ago. Ava looked down. I told the security guard at the front desk I was your fiancée. I laughed. That hasn't been true for 3 years. Ethan. She looked up, fresh tears welling in her eyes. I know I was wrong. I really, truly know now. You know now. I know. I know everything. She sobbed. Caleb is a liar. Akonman. He tricked me. He destroyed my family. And I have nothing left. She grabbed my sleeve. My dad is gone. My home is gone. All the money is gone. Ethan, you're all I have left. Suddenly, she dropped to her knees and wrapped her arms around my legs. Can we start over? Please. It was always you I loved. I was just confused. Caleb manipulated me. Ethan, please forgive me, please. We can get married. I don't want anything. I just want to be with you. I looked down at her, at this woman clinging to my legs, sobbing, snot and tears everywhere. At the face that was once so proud, now etched with nothing but desperation and begging. At the look in her eyes, that deluded, self-serving belief that this was some kind of tragic love story. I bent down and grabbed her chin. Hard. She winced in pain, forced to look up at me. You love me? I asked. My voice was soft. Is that why you took your father's life and your family's fortune and handed it over to that parasite? The color drained from Ava's face. No, that's not. I was tricked. You were tricked into stealing the corporate seal. You were tricked into forging the signatures. You were tricked into using your family's company as collateral. I fired the questions one after another. With each one, my grip tightened. Her jaw was turning white under my fingers. I did it for love. Love. I laughed. I let her go. She fell back onto the carpet. That wasn't love. That was you being pathetic. Ava's eyes went wide. Ethan, how could you say that? Am I wrong? For a man, you stole from your own family, you got your father killed, and you destroyed his legacy. Now that man is gone, and you come crawling back to me. Ava, do you take me for a backup plan or a complete idiot? No, she shrieked. I really do love you. It's always been you. Is that what you told Caleb? No. What was it you said at our engagement party? I pretended to think. Ah, yes. Caleb is the most important person in my life. Now that he's gone, I'm the most important person again. Ava's mouth hung open, speechless. Tears had ruined her makeup, leaving black streaks all down her face. She looked pitiful, pathetic, and repulsive. Ethan, she started crawling toward me, trying to grab my legs again. I took a step back and raised my hand. Crack! A slap across her left cheek. Harder than 3 years ago. Her head whipped to the side. That one was for being a fool. Crack! The second slap. On her right cheek. That one was for being a cheap. Crack! The third slap. Back on the left. And that one was for having no brain. 3 times. Her lips split open again, blood welling up. Her face began to swell instantly, the fingerprints of vivid red. She held her face, staring at me in numb shock, as if she couldn't believe I had hit her again. Get out, I said, and don't ever touch me with your filthy hands again. She just shook her head, still trying to speak. I turned and gestured to the security guards down the hall. 2 of them came running. Mr. Hayes, get her out of here, and make sure she never sets foot in this building again. Yes, sir. They grabbed Ava by the arms. She began to struggle, to scream. Ethan, you can't do this to me. I love you. I really love you. Ethan, listen to me. Her voice faded as they dragged her away, disappearing into the elevator. I stood there in the hallway. I took a cigarette from my case and lit it. I took a long drag. The smoke curled under the hallway lights. Like all the absurdities of the past, drifting away, then gone. Leo came out of another suite and saw me. What was that about? Nothing, I said, tapping the ash from my cigarette. Just a fly. He glanced toward the elevators and understood. Still hasn't given up? She will soon. I took one last drag, then crushed the cigarette in a nearby ashtray. I'm leaving. Already? Yeah. I walked toward the elevator. Leo called after me. The Chamber of Commerce Gala is next week. You going? I'll be there. Ava might try to get in. I know. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside. The doors closed. In the mirrored wall, my face was perfectly calm, like the surface of a deep, dark lake. What lay beneath? Only I knew. 7. The Chicago Annual Charity Gala. It was held in the grand ballroom of the newly opened Bestie, Regis, a 5,000-square-foot space on the top floor. Crystal chandeliers hung like waterfalls from the 20-foot ceiling, illuminating the glittering crowd below. The men were in bespoke tuxedos, the women dripping with jewels, their designer gowns sweeping across the polished marble floors. Politicians, titans of industry, celebrities, socialites. If you were anyone in Chicago, you were here. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, a glass of champagne in my hand, making small talk with a few business leaders from my father's generation. Ethan, your return certainly signals big things to come. I hear you're in talks for a major overseas acquisition. A real visionary. You've already surpassed what we were doing at your age. I smiled and played my part, my eyes scanning the room. These events were half networking, half theater. Everyone was playing a role. The role of success, of class, of belonging. Mark appeared at my side. Mr. Hayes, the donation to the foundation has been processed. The $5 million has been received. Good. Also, he paused. Ava and Caleb are here. I raised an eyebrow. They have an invitation? They used the invitation sent to Caleb's old company. It should have been voided 3 months ago, Mark explained. The staff at the door are new. They didn't check the details. Where are they? 9 o'clock, near the catering tables. I looked over, and there they were. Ava was wearing a cheap knockoff of a designer dress from a past season. The fabric was flimsy, the tailoring all wrong. She had on a thick layer of makeup that failed to hide the dark circles and fine lines around her eyes. Caleb stood beside her in a wrinkled suit, his tie askew. His hair was greasy, as if it hadn't been washed in days. They were both holding glasses of champagne, circling the room, looking for someone. Should I have them removed? Mark asked. Not yet, I said. Let's see what they're planning. As if on cue, the show began. Ava's voice, suddenly loud and shrill, cut through the din. Mr. Lawson, Mr. Grant, fancy seeing you here. She had cornered two older gentlemen who were on their way out. I knew them. They had made their fortune in real estate and were now major angel investors with deep pockets. Lawson and Grant stopped, their expressions puzzled. They clearly had no idea who Ava was. It's me, Ava Carter, she said, stepping closer. Richard Carter's daughter, from Carter Holdings. The two men exchanged a look, a flicker of recognition, followed by undisguised contempt. Carter Holdings was ancient history. Richard Carter was dead. This Miss Carter was a nobody. But, given the setting, they managed a polite nod. Miss Carter, can we help you? Yes, I have a wonderful opportunity for you. Ava's smile was painfully bright. She pulled Caleb forward. This is my friend, Caleb Vance. He's a brilliant entrepreneur. His company is poised for incredible growth. Caleb quickly tried to hand him a business card. It was printed on cheap, flimsy stock. The company name was Vance Carter Tech, and his title was Chief Executive Officer. Mr. Lawson took the card and glanced at it without a word. Mr. Grant didn't even bother to take one. Miss Carter, we were just leaving. Don't be in such a hurry. Ava blocked their path. Caleb's company has a new project. It's a sure thing, and he's looking for strategic investors. She lowered her voice, creating a conspiratorial air. And I'll let you in on a little inside information. She paused, making sure the people around them could hear. Ethan Hayes. You know him, right? Lawson and Grant frowned. Well, Ethan and I are very close. Ava straightened her back, her voice rising again. We're getting back together. Actually, we've already set a wedding date. So, a small investment like this, Ethan would obviously do it as a favor to me. For Caleb, if you invest now, you'll be getting in on the ground floor. Once Ethan gets involved, this project will skyrocket. We're talking a tenfold return minimum. She was practically glowing with her own bullshit. Caleb stood beside her, nodding and bowing. Mr. Lawson, Mr. Grant, our company may be new, but with Ava's connections, our resources are second to none. With Mr. Hayes, it's just a matter of one phone call. People were starting to look. Whispers spread. Ethan and Ava are getting back together. No way. After her family went bankrupt. But she sounds so sure of herself. The expressions on Lawson and Grant's faces changed. They looked from Ava to Caleb, and they hesitated. If Ethan Hayes was really involved, then maybe this project was. I put my champagne glass down and started walking. The crowd parted for me. All eyes turned in my direction. Ava was still talking. And you can trust me. Ethan listens to everything I say. We just had a little misunderstanding at our engagement party, but he came back for me. Then she saw me. Her voice died in her throat. The smile froze on her face. The color drained from it instantly. Her lips trembled, but no words came out. Caleb saw me too. His hand shook so badly he nearly dropped his glass. I walked right up to them and stopped. I looked at Lawson, then at Grant. Gentlemen, what project has captured your interest? Lawson managed an awkward smile. Ethan, we were just chatting. Were you? I turned to Ava. Because I heard you were using my name to help Mr. Vance here secure some funding. Ava's mouth hung open. I wasn't. No. I smiled. You were speaking quite loudly a moment ago. I think everyone here heard you. I reached out and took the wine glass from Caleb's trembling hand. He was too terrified to resist. I swirled the glass. The red wine sloshed around, dark as blood. Ava, I said her name. When, exactly, did my name become yours to use? She flinched as if struck. Ethan, please let me explain. Explain what? I cut her off. Explain how you were planning to use my reputation to scam people into funding this loser's shell company. I lifted my hand. Whoosh. I poured the entire glass of red wine over her head. The dark liquid ran down her hair, her face, her neck. It soaked the front of her cheap dress, staining to deep, ugly crimson. Ava stood there, frozen, utterly still, like a statue that had been vandalized. Wine dripped from her chin onto the marble floor. Drop, drop. The ballroom was completely silent. Everyone stared, watching this sudden, brutal humiliation. I looked at Ava's wine-soaked face, at the terror, the despair, the sheer disbelief in her eyes. 3 years ago, I said. My voice was quiet, but it carried in the silence. At our engagement party, you demanded that I kneel before Caleb, that I bow my head to the floor 3 times. I pointed at Caleb. Now, you two are going to get on your knees, and you're going to lick this wine off the floor. And maybe, just maybe, I'll let you leave with a shred of dignity. Ava shook her head violently. No. Ethan, you can't. I can't. I laughed. You seem to think you could do whatever you wanted back then. Caleb took a step back. He was going to run. I turned my gaze on him. You take one more step, and I guarantee you won't be walking out of Chicago tomorrow. He froze. His face was ashen. They both stood there, motionless, like 2 stiff, pathetic mannequins. I was out of patience. I raised my hand. Crack. I slapped Ava across the face. The force of it sent her stumbling sideways into a catering table. Plates and glasses crashed to the floor. Crack. Another slap, this time for Caleb. He went flying backward, crashing into the champagne tower. The sound of shattering glass echoed through the hall as hundreds of flutes rained down. They both lay on the floor. Ava, clutching her face, finally started to sob. Caleb was curled in a ball, too afraid to move. I turned and faced the entire room of guests. Everyone, I announced, as of tonight, these 2 people are blacklisted from the Chicago business community. Anyone who does business with them, lends them money, or even speaks to them, I paused, is an enemy of mine, and an enemy of the Hayes Corporation. Are we clear? The room was silent. Then, a sea of nodding heads. No one dared to speak. I motioned with my hand. Security guards rushed over. Mr. Hayes, throw them out. Yes, sir. 4 guards descended, grabbing Ava and Caleb. They dragged them out like 2 sacks of garbage. Ava was struggling, screaming, Ethan, you can't do this to me. I love you. Ethan, you bastard. Ethan. Her voice grew fainter, until it was finally gone. On the floor, a sticky pool of red wine and champagne spread across the marble. A stain, just like their lives. Filthy, cheap, and worthless. Mark handed me a warm, damp towel. I wiped my hands. Then, I turned back to Lawson and Grant. Gentlemen, where were we? They both snapped out of their stupor, forcing smiles onto their faces. Ethan, we were just discussing that plot of land on the south side. Yes, tremendous potential. I smiled back. Let's continue. As if the disgusting scene had never happened. As if those 2 people had never existed. The party resumed. The music started again. People raised their glasses and began to talk and laugh once more. But everyone in that room knew the truth. From this night forward, there was no Ava Carter in Chicago. She was dead. Dead in the city she was once the princess of. Dead in the minds of everyone who mattered. Dead in the grave she had dug for herself. 8. After the charity gala, the names Ava Carter and Caleb Vance became toxic in Chicago. Worse than poison. No one would touch them. The friends who used to party with them now blocked their numbers and crossed the street to avoid them. The business contacts who used to flatter them now saw them coming and waved them away from 20 feet. No money. Not lending. Don't ask. The banks had blacklisted them long ago. Now, even the sleaziest payday loan shops would look at their IDs and shake their heads. Sorry, your credit history is shot. Can't help you. Can't help you. No one could. Caleb's Vance Carter Tech officially went under 3 days after the gala. The court put a lock on the door. The computers, desks, chairs, even the half-dead potted plant were all seized and auctioned off to pay his debts. He still owed his suppliers $70,000. He still owed his former employees 3 months of back pay. He still owed the building 6 months of rent. Caleb hid in their rented room, terrified to go outside. Debt collectors called 80 times a day. At first, he would answer, begging in a low voice, just a few more days. Eventually, he just turned the phone off. He snapped the SIM card in half and flushed it down the toilet, as if the debt would get flushed away with it. The place they lived now was in a forgotten corner on the far west side, a room on the top floor of a crumbling, illegally subdivided house. 300 square feet, 800 a month. The window was broken, patched with old newspaper. Large chunks of plaster were falling off the walls, revealing the dark, moldy brick underneath. The floor was cracked concrete, so uneven it hurt to walk on. The bathroom was communal down the hall. You needed a flashlight to go at night because the single bulb in the stairwell had burned out months ago. Roaches were their roommates. During the day, they hid in the cracks, but at night, they came out, crawling over the countertop, the table, even the bed. The first time Ava saw one, she screamed and jumped onto a chair. Now she was numb. When she saw a roach, she'd just kill it with a flip-flop. Then she'd go back to staring at nothing. The room contained a single mattress on the floor, a ripped sofa, and a wobbly table. The table was covered in empty instant noodle cups, some of which had started to grow mold. The air smelled sour, a mix of mildew, sweat, and despair. The fighting had started the day they moved in. Ava sat on the mattress, looking at the squalor, and tears started to fall. "This is all your fault," she mumbled. Caleb was squatting by the door, smoking. He ignored her. "It's all your fault," Ava shrieked. "If it weren't for you, my family wouldn't be ruined. My dad wouldn't be dead. I wouldn't be living in this hellhole." Caleb ground the cigarette but into the floor. "My fault." He stood up and pointed a trembling finger at her. "If you hadn't been so obsessed with me, if you hadn't stolen your family's corporate seal, if you hadn't built me up like I was some kind of genius, do you think I would have started that stupid company? Do you think I'd be drowning in debt? Do you think I'd be stuck in this shithole? Ava, you're the curse here." Ava lunged, grabbing the front of his shirt. "What did you just say?" "I said you're a curse." Caleb screamed back. "You cursed your father to death. You cursed your family into bankruptcy. And now you're cursing me." Crack. Ava slapped him across the face. Caleb froze for a second. Then he slapped her back, twice as hard. Crack. The blow sent Ava stumbling into the wall. She clutched her cheek, her eyes bloodshot with rage. "Caleb, how dare you hit me?" "Hit you? So what?" Caleb was breathing heavily. "You think you're still some high society princess? I'm telling you, you're nothing now. You're worse than a stray dog." Ava screamed and threw herself at him. They wrestled, knocking over the table. The noodle cups scattered, spilling foul-smelling liquid everywhere. They were finally stopped by their neighbor banging on the wall. "Shut up in there. I'm calling the cops." They stopped and collapsed on the floor, panting, glaring at each other, their eyes filled with pure hate. That fight became their daily routine. They fought about money. "Do you have any money left? Where would I get money? What about that jewelry you hid? You took that to a pawn shop last week." "Bullshit. When did I do that?" "Last Tuesday. You lost $300 playing poker." "That was for networking." "Networking my ass." They fought about chores. "The toilet is clogged again. You go fix it." "Why should I?" "This is your home. Your ancestors' home." They fought about the past. "If you hadn't tried to make Ethan kneel, he never would have called off the engagement. If you hadn't thrown yourself at me, I never would have looked twice at you. I threw myself at you. You were the one who came sniffing around." Bullshit. The fighting always ended with violence. Slaps, hair-pulling, kicks. Everything breakable in the room was already broken. All that was left was the mattress and the sofa. They only had 2 bowls left, both of them chipped. The neighbors called the cops 3 times. The police would come, take a report, tell them to quiet down, and leave. The next day, it would happen all over again. The cops got tired of it. The last time they came, a young officer looked at the trashed room and just shook his head. "Look, if we have to come back again, we're taking you both down to the station to cool off for the night." They both looked at the floor, silent. The minute the cops left, they started fighting again. Winter came. A damp, brutal Chicago winter, the cold seeping into your bones. The room had no heat. The wind whistled through the newspaper-patched window. They had one thin blanket between them. At night, they shivered uncontrollably. Ava suggested buying a small space heater. Caleb said they had no money. "What about that coat of yours? You could sell it." Ava's coat, a Max Mara she had bought 3 years ago. It had cost over $2,000. The pawn shop offered her $300 for it. "$300 is $300, Caleb said. "It's better than freezing to death." Ava clutched the coat, refusing. This is the last nice thing I own. Who gives a damn? Caleb snatched it from her. Who are you trying to impress now? They started fighting again, and then they started hitting each other. This time was worse. Caleb got the coat and ran for the door. Ava tackled him, wrapping her arms around his legs. Give it back. Get off me. Give it back. Caleb started kicking her. Once, twice. Ava wouldn't let go. Enraged, Caleb grabbed her by the hair and slammed her head against the wall. Thump, thump, thump. Ava screamed. Her grip loosened. Caleb, clutching the coat, yanked the door open and fled. Ava scrambled to her feet and chased him. The stairwell was dark. Her foot slipped, and she tumbled down the stairs. Her head hit a pile of junk on the landing and split open. Blood streamed down her forehead. She lay there, watching Caleb's retreating back, and she started to laugh. She laughed until she cried. Caleb didn't get far. Just as he left the alley, a group of men blocked his path. They were loan sharks, sent by a creditor. The leader was a bald man with a dragon tattoo on his neck. Caleb, where's the money? Caleb started trembling. Dragon, please, just a few more days. A few more days, my ass. The man kicked him in the stomach. You've owed us for 6 months. You don't pay today, we break your leg. Caleb fell to his knees, bowing his head. Dragon, I swear I have no money. Look, this coat, it's expensive. You can have it. The man took the coat, looked it over. Then he threw it on the grimy pavement and stomped on it. This piece of crap? I wouldn't use it to wipe my shoes. He waved his hand. Get him. The men surrounded him. Fists and feet rained down. Caleb curled up, screaming in agony. Finally, the bald man stepped on his left leg. A little something to remember us by. Crack. The sound of bones snapping. Sharp and clean. Caleb let out one last, terrible scream and passed out. The wail of sirens echoed through the narrow alleys. When Ava was helped into the ambulance, her face was covered in blood. Caleb was on a stretcher, his left leg bent at an unnatural angle. They were taken to the same hospital, different rooms, separated by a hallway, but it felt like a universe. A cop came to take their statements. Asked what happened. Ava didn't speak. She just stared at the ceiling. Her eyes were empty. Caleb didn't speak either. He just grit his teeth against the pain, sweat pouring down his face. The cop shook his head and left. The hospital room was quiet. Ava slowly turned her head and looked out the window. Outside was the glittering skyline of Chicago. The towering buildings, the millions of lights. One of those lights used to be hers. Now they were all dark. 3 months later, I was in my office on the top floor of Hayes Tower. Mark stood before my desk, delivering the final report. The wound on Ava Carter's face left a scar, and she has partial vision loss in her left eye. No one will hire her. She's washing dishes at a small diner on the west side. It includes room and board, and she makes $2,000 a month. Caleb Vance's leg never healed properly. He has a permanent limp. He begs on the street now, sometimes shoplifts. He's been beaten up a few times for it. They saw each other one last time, outside that rooming house. What did they say? We don't know, Mark said. But neighbors saw Ava's spit in Caleb's face. Caleb picked up a rock and threw it at her. He missed. I nodded. I walked to the window. Outside, the Chicago skyline was bathed in the golden light of sunset. This city was now completely and utterly mine. Mr. Hayes. Mark hesitated. Is there anything else you'd like us to do? No, I said. I picked up the glass of wine from my desk and took a sip. This is fine. Let them live. Let them live and watch themselves rot, piece by piece. Mark nodded and quietly exited the office. I was alone, high above the city. It was all over.